Yes, welcome to the No State Project here on LRN.FM, the Liberty Radio Network. We're live from the Fortified Compound every Saturday from 4 to 7 Eastern Standard Time, 1 to 4 on the West Coast there. And Sunday morning if you're down under, and good day if you are, and we appreciate you tuning in, mate. Glad to have everyone aboard, no matter where you're listening, or if you're listening on the podcast, which will be available after the show at markstevens.net. And also on my YouTube channel, which is just youtube.com/No State Project. And I'm really close to having 8,000 subscribers. And I know 10K seems to be the big one, but maybe we can get those handful of people to get to do that, and we'll start working on the 10K. Glad to be here. It has been it's been over a week since we had a live broadcast, so I'm glad to be here. We got a whole ton of stuff to get to, a virtual ton of information for these 3 hours of Anarchy Radio, and yes, Anarchy in the sense that I am using it, and those who listen to the show, it is an absence of rulers, not rules. Absence of rulers. We reject the concept of a ruling class and the double standard that goes with it to justify it. This idea, which I won't get into right now, that when they force you into court, and you are forced, that you are not to use whatever peaceful means are available to you to show that they are criminals, that you have to somehow conform your defense into their so-called logic. I don't buy it. I don't buy it for a second. When we go into court, it's not just to get a ticket thrown out. We make a principled stand, which is why some people cannot understand why Scar, and congratulations to Scar. Why would he go through 9 procedures instead of just paying it? Because unlike some critics, we take a principled stand. Some of us have principles we're standing up for, even if that means spending time defending against these baseless charges, which Scar is now 3 for 3. It's called a principled stand to show how criminal these people are. So criminal, in fact, that they have to create a new system of so-called logic. Don't fall for it. If someone is talking out 2 sides of his mouth, you object, and we'll get into that. But if you want to join the show today, you can do so. It's 218-632-9399, 218-632-9399. The passcode, if it actually isn't there, which I'm pretty certain is 2020 #, or hashtag for you millennials. 2020 # or hashtag. You can also instant message me at Skype at FrankRizzo3 if you want to join the show, or if you just have a question or concern about the show that you want me to discuss. So, if we've been following this, I don't have that many details about what's going on with Jermaine, but I do have a call. It's going to take up the next 2 segments. I got to speak to him in jail. He's in jail in Calgary, and we're working on getting him out. Listen to the entire call, because there is good news that I just found out about last night. It's one of those things the critics can take and shove right up there, It's good. Oh, it's good. So let's get to that now. I'm here.
Hello? Yeah, you guys can talk now.
Oh, great. So I before I tried to keep them on by not hitting any of the buttons, but that didn't help.
Oh.
Yeah, they only allow 1 minute call for free, international, and then after that, there has to be an account set up. Thanks.
What is it, like $15 a minute?
Yeah, something like that. I thought it was ridiculous, but we can do it this way every time. It's all right.
Okay, well, I'll do my best to be brief. I've spoken with someone at the prosecutor's office a few days ago, and it turns out that they were not a prosecutor. They were a litigation assistant, so they're like a paralegal. They
Okay.
wanted me to she wanted me to email, and they would have a prosecutor look at the question and get back to me. And I told them that I was working with you as a Mackenzie friend, which is kind of, ironic since, I'm a Mackenzie friend in two senses, but I didn't realize that until the other day. So I'm working. I'm do what I can to get, and I know they can hear this. So there's going to be a habeas petition coming. Is there? I don't remember having a. Do they do like in the U.S.? Do you have an inmate number?
Yeah, it's 142-3115.
142-3115.
I also
exactly?
called the prosecutor.
I am. But
Sorry, go ahead.
Where exactly are you?
I'm in Calgary, Alberta.
Yeah, but where are they holding you?
It's called Calgary Remand Center. It's a holding facility. It's in the northwest of Calgary, Alberta, Canada.
What did you say it was a what center?
Remand. Called Calgary Remand Center.
Okay. All right. I'll look up the address and who runs that. And do my best to get something out. I don't know how we can even get it to you, or if I can do it in my name, but I'd have to do a telephonic hearing. I don't know if they would allow that. I have to figure out how I'm going to do it. More than likely, the best way is to do what we can to get it to you, but they could run interference. So.
Yeah, they'll read the letter. Like if you send it to me with that inmate number, I'll get it, but they'll read it first.
Yeah, and just keep in mind if all of a sudden they move you next week, then you know that they're doing that to defeat the habeas corpus. So.
Yeah.
Okay. So, is there anything I need to know for the habeas corpus? I mean, what kind of, have you filed a motion to dismiss? Have you started discovery? I mean, did you file the application to dismiss with the discovery request?
I sure did, yeah. I've actually been to, I think, two arraignments on these matters. I had already filed the motions beforehand, and so when I went in there, I was actually prepared from doing the role playing, and I went in there and I asked the question. And, the prosecutor, they were lost for words. They couldn't answer it. And she basically just stood there until the judge stepped in. This happened on two separate occasions. The judge stepped in and started answering these questions for her. And then after that, gave her 30 more days on two separate occasions to come up with this evidence. So between, that 60 days and basically now, I got rearrested again. For breaching the conditions of the original charges that they're alleging.
And in the 60 days, when they got the additional 30 days, did they comply with the order at all?
No, they didn't. Not at all. I came back to court again, and it was the same shit. They just basically wanted to ignore the motion and ignore everything and just start over how they usually would. And I asked again, what's the deal with this motion? This time they had the sheriffs on me, pressuring me and stuff like that. And so I didn't want to get into contempt. So I basically agreed to allow them again more time to find this evidence. They haven't to this day. I've asked them in person outside of court. I ran into the prosecutor outside of court. I asked her. She again just went back into, talking circles about, you violated the code and it says so and all that stuff. And she didn't have this evidence. And every time I go to court...
Okay, we're going to continue after the break with a call from Jermaine. But please, come back. You're definitely going to want to hear the good news, so don't go away. It's good. Yes, welcome back to the No State Project. I'm your host, Marc Stevens, author of Government Indicted, which you can get at markstevens.net. Has an entire model of how to effectively defend yourself that we've been able to then demonstrate on the website with actual proof. People continuing to replicate the results on 3 continents. And yes, be wary. There are critics that will say that even if the motion to dismiss is explicitly granted by the judge, that doesn't mean that the judge saw any merit to the motion. And I'm pretty sure that anybody with any sense of logic and rational, and has a good BS meter is going to know that's just complete horse crap. It's what the lawyers like to say is speculation. So you like the legal term there, huh? Or is that not allowed by a non-lawyer? Oh, you're not a real lawyer. You're a pseudo lawyer. You shouldn't be using the word speculation because that's only for us. Okay, whatever. This is going to be an example in what Jermaine, we're going to get back to that call, what is happening with him up in Canada, in Calgary specifically. Because the judge did something about the motion to dismiss. And keep in mind, not the motion, the discovery request. If the information we are asking for in the discovery request is not required, somebody has to come in and say, why has another judge, this is not the good news, by the way, it's good. Someone has to explain why yet another judge is ordering a prosecutor to respond to the discovery request if the evidence that we are asking for is completely irrelevant and not required. So let's get back to that call.
I asked her. She again just went back into, talking circles about, you violated the code and it said so and all that stuff. And she didn't have this evidence. And every time I go to court, the judge keeps giving them more time to come up. It's a stall tactic, right? Because they know eventually I'm going to breach. It's a mathematical probability, right? I mean, I got, I won't get into the details of it, but eventually you're going to breach. The conditions are quite unreasonable. And so here I am. I breached, and they've arrested me, and now they're playing more stall tactics. They've denied my bail. I'm not being held on the original charges. I don't know if my girlfriend told you that. But I've actually met bail on the original charges. So it's only the breaches and the failing to appear to court that they're holding me on right now. Now I offered to give up my passport because they said the reason we're going to deny your bail today is mostly because you had failing to appear. And I offered to give up my passport until after the trial was done. And my uncle, who was present that day, also offered to sign as a surety and assume partial, responsibility for me showing up to court, and they refused and detained me. So here I am. I've been here for about 40 days.
What's the prosecutor's name? Do you remember?
One of the prosecutors I remember is Sarah Goldbaker, but they've been switching the prosecutors, man. I'm telling you, like every day I go there, it's a different prosecutor. But I do remember Sarah Goldbaker. She was one of the main ones that I saw on multiple occasions. But they're very secretive. They won't give their names. I've even tried to call them and, allow you to call on my behalf and get information and whatnot. They wouldn't allow that. They're just making it extremely difficult for me to get any information whatsoever. And then when they do give me this silly disclosure package, it's nothing but the police report. It's like a copy of the ticket, and that's it. And that's their evidence.
Which, of course, you've already had, and there was no reason for the judge to order them to comply with the discovery request because you already had. If that was all that was required, he would have just said, "Well, you have the damn ticket. We've already." Okay. Okay. I have the recording on my other computer of who I spoke to, but again, it was only a litigation assistant. Okay, so we've got a Derek and a Goldbaker. All right, I'll try to look up. And they allowed me, at least initially, when I said that I was acting as a McKinsey friend, that the litigation assistant spoke with me, without a problem. She didn't throw up any kind of roadblock, even when she was completely dumbfounded, just like her associates were in court when you did it to them.
Yeah, they basically dropped their hands and were like, we don't have this evidence. I've been following your work for some time, and it has merit, man, I'm telling you, because, while I've been detained, they brought me to trial on some other charges, and I had nothing but your dismissal motion, and I used it to get a mistrial.
Wow.
I'll explain it after. Yeah, I got a mistrial, and they dropped about 5 charges. I'll tell you what they are. Hang on. Yeah, so the controlled substance was stayed. Failure to comply ×2 was stayed. Operation of unregistered vehicle was stayed, and a fail to hold a valid operator's license was stayed, and a driving without no insurance was stayed. Just that. Just going there and asking, the questions of jurisdiction, and sticking to that, and that's it. The judge recused himself, declared a mistrial, and sent all the evidence back to the prosecutor.
When did that happen? Do you remember?
That was on, I believe it was the 18th of January.
Jeez. And they haven't refiled.
That's why Gary had recommended. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying they haven't refiled. That's a damn good sign.
Yeah, they haven't. I just got a charge summary report of all the charges that they brought against me since it's been about 1.5 years they've been harassing me. And so I'm seeing here I had 2 cases. They were both similar cases. They pulled me over twice and found me, or allegedly found me, driving without valid credentials. And so I've already gone to trial. They forced me through a trial without a lawyer, and it basically in chains. And they dismissed it, or they didn't dismiss it, but they said mistrial.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking at the charge summary report, and the charge status is stayed.
Well, it's been well over a month now. It's over. It's 5 weeks now, and they haven't refiled. So that's a good sign, a very good sign. Well, that's great. That's kind of the silver lining on this black cloud right now. So that's a plus. They know going into this that you've already gotten them beat. You've already beaten them once. And you did that in chains, where you could even, So I would imagine I'm probably not going to get a call back from the prosecution. And just in case something happens, it's okay that I broadcast this on the show tomorrow, right?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, you got my consent to do that.
All right. Well, I'm making sure that I have enough information for the habeas corpus, and it's great to find out that there was a mistrial. As far as
you have 1 minute remaining for this call.
Damn it!
Yeah, I got 1 minute remaining.
Yeah, welcome back. We're gonna take the next few. We're gonna finish the next few minutes of the call when we come back here. But a big congrats to Jermaine for standing up on taking a principled stand against these predators, these criminals, and getting a mistrial. But we'll be back with the rest in just a moment. Don't go away.
Hello, Mark. Can you hear me?
Yes. Let me kill the feed. Hey.
That was cool.
Damn mistrial.
5 charges, including drug charges.
Yeah. They haven't refiled, so they're probably not going to. And he was just in court again recently in the last week, and they still haven't refiled in 5 weeks. So.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, you're right to say that that's some silver lining, and maybe that's why they, they don't want to make a precedent here. They're giving him a hard time. It seems like they're, so are they keeping him just because of his failure to appear? Is that the sole reason why they're denying him bail?
Right. The underlying issues have already been dismissed.
Wow.
Yep.
Wait. The underlying issues for for what he's in jail for has been dismissed?
Yep.
Wow. That is good news. 45 days for failures to appear in jail.
So
Isn't
far.
that how long you said he was in? 45 days?
Yeah, he's been there so far. They may try to crucify him on these charges, so they don't have to call the cops as witnesses. One of the cops has already been proven to be a liar. Even the judge agreed, so and dismissed him from testifying against him again. So it may be this charge that they try to crucify him on, which would suck. Which is why it's so urgent we get the habeas corpus in.
Has that been already sent over to them, or what's the status?
No, like I mentioned on the call, I wanted to speak to the prosecutor's office first, so I had a little more to go on. I needed more information from him because his contact just doesn't have all the information. I needed more information before we file something like that. And now I have it, and so I'm hoping to get it over to him on Monday.
It was interesting to hear that they kept switching prosecutors throughout the proceedings too. Every hearing a new prosecutor, huh?
That might not be anything, though. That could be completely just the way the office functions. A lot of offices do that way, so I can't read anything into that.
Right.
But the judge recused himself, so...
Well, hey, at least they're doing the right thing some of the time, giving us some ground here.
Yeah. Why? And again, the question still is pertinent. If the evidence we were asking for in the discovery request was irrelevant and not discoverable, then the judge would have, one, either denied the discovery request entirely, or he would have said numbers 1, 2, 5, and whatever are not discoverable, and the prosecution has no duty to disclose any of that. But that's not what's happening. And judges do that all the time. They single out certain parts of a discovery request, and no, you don't get this. We have it happen in California all the time. California has some of the worst Brady protections. You actually have to have hardcore proof to get into a police officer's file. In Arizona, you just have to see it. Yeah, you have to have a smoking gun, or you don't get anything.
Oh.
Well, we're actually back here live on the No State Project, talking with Calvin, and appreciate all the work you do behind the scenes there, tough guy. But
no problem, but I'm excited about the good news. 2 success stories to open the show. What great news.
Yeah, we got Scar 3 for 3, and then we've got Jermaine getting 5 charges thrown out, basically on a mistrial. And it's been 5 weeks, and they have not refiled. And he's already been to court at least one time since January 18th. He was in court very recently. I think it was in the past week. So it looks like this one, is going. They're probably not going to refile, especially since, as you'll hear, there's an issue with one of the witnesses. Of course, a cop lying. Who would have thought, right?
Oh yeah, that never happens.
Oh no! But let me get back. I'm gonna get back to the recording. All right. Well, I'm making sure that I have enough information for the habeas corpus, and it's great to find out that there was a mistrial. As far as
you have 1 minute remaining for this call.
Damn it!
Yeah, I got 1 minute remaining. I've got 1 minute remaining.
Okay.
I'll try to call you back. Yeah, I'll try to call back. Okay, Mark.
Okay. All right. All right. Yeah, call us. Yeah. Okay. Call her back. I guess.
So, Mark, can you stay online? So
yeah,
he calls me back. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. I'm glad there's some good news here. This is that really is a big plus in his favor going. For the habeas corpus. So I need to just get some of the details about their witnesses and what happened during the cross-examination. So if he got a mistrial...
You have exceeded the allowable time for this call. Goodbye.
I'll have to ask him about what happened during the cross-examination because that could be crucial and information for the habeas.
Yeah, and you think the prosecutor they won't call you back, right?
They're not. If it was the U.S., they wouldn't. I would be absolutely certain they weren't calling back. But since you can act as a McKenzie friend up there, I don't see where where it's as big of an issue for them up there. So, if anything, I'll just call the number. Monday, I'll just call the number back that I called the other day and spoke with the litigation assistant and just have her put me through. Say, look, just put me through to one of one of the Crown prosecutors that are assigned to this, and Let me see if we can get somewhere. I mean, we've got somebody sitting in jail for these a month now.
Yeah, over like 40 days now.
Oh, good Lord.
Yeah, and he only gets like 30 minutes per day, so it's like 23 and a half hour lock up.
Yeah, I remember, that's right. I think you mentioned that it was a 23-hour lockdown, and he's not, and so everyone knows he's not accused of anything violent.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mala prohibita, that's where the actions complained of are only wrong because politicians said so. Those cretins. And hopefully he's able to get back on with us here real soon. I hate having to, I'm glad I spoke with him, and hopefully he'll call back. It's just I wanted to have something more for the habeas corpus, which is why I wanted to speak with the prosecution first. Mm-hmm. But now that I've spoken with him, it's even if I don't have anything more than the litigation assistant, based on what he's telling me.
He's calling, Mark. Mark, he's calling. I answer first.
Okay. Yeah. All this about Canada being so friendly. A nonviolent offense, mala prohibita. No violence charged at all. Again, that he's charged with any kind of violence, and yet it's a 23-hour lockdown. So, those stupid memes.
Hello?
Okay, I think we're all back.
Hello?
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I hear you, Mark.
All right, Jermaine, real quick, what I was talking about before, give me some of the details about the cross-examination.
Okay, the cross-examination, right. So they brought these two police officers on to testify, And actually what happened is the judge found them to be lying. Number one, they couldn't come to an agreement on how many joints I had in the vehicle when they searched it. One was saying 2, one was saying 3. It was very incoherent. And the first witness, I remember, it was the judge asked me, he said, do you want to allow this testimony in this case? And I said, okay, well, no, obviously.
Yeah.
And I said it was all hearsay. It sounded like this guy was not even there. All he was saying was, my partner this, my partner that. I saw my partner do this and whatnot. And, I just thought it was all hearsay. It's like he wasn't even there. And so he didn't allow that one in.
Nice.
And then after that, the judge said that they were in clear violation of my charter rights, right? I don't really agree with any of the legislation, but if they say I have them, so what, right? So he said they were in clear violation of my charter rights because not having a driver's license is not grounds for them to search my private property. That's what the judge said. So he said regardless of what happens in this case, you will not be found guilty of that charge, which was a controlled substance.
Wow, I'll point out, to just explain about what you're saying there, that it's not that we have rights and that we talk about due process and whatnot because we think that applies to us. What we're doing is we're asking questions and then we're bringing out the contradictions between their actions and their public relations, that their actions are not consistent with their code. That's why we do that, in an effort to get this, for them to do like what the judge did and do the right thing and toss these things out.
Yeah, I agree. Although he did try to step in and answer for the prosecutor, thank God for the role play, man. I'm telling you, I learned a lot from that chat. I just basically asked this question in court. I said, I went back to the burden of the proof. I said, is the burden of proof on the prosecutor, and are you covering that burden of proof for him? Because he was starting to answer questions of jurisdiction and applicability that I was asking. And so this put him back in that corner of he can't really, whatever they call it, prosecute from the bench or be biased or whatnot. And so I think that was a big turning point in this trial because he realized he wasn't being impartial at that point. He was answering for the prosecutor. How these courts have been going is like I go in there and I'm just talking to the judge. It's like the prosecutor is not even in the room,
Well, and that's something we see very often because the prosecutors, if the judge is going to carry their burden for them and say, try to testify and give them that information. Why should they say anything? Because when you saw, like what you mentioned before, and just like what happened with me on the phone with the litigation assistant and all these other prosecutors I've spoken with, when you ask them that question directly, they've got nothing. They don't try to turn around and say you're asking a philosophical question. Occasionally they'll turn around and say, I don't have to prove that. But then when you bring up, excuse me, are you arguing without evidence against me? Then they realize the rules don't allow them. That's not fair. You can try to say it's philosophy all you want, but to argue without evidence, that's a felony, even in Canada. Well, most places it is. So that's why I think the prosecutor is not going to say anything if the judge is doing it for him. So once you step in and the judge actually did the right thing here, so kudos to him for that. The prosecution has nothing to add. They have nothing to offer. So at any point during the cross-examination of the other police officer, were you asking questions regarding evidence proving their constitution applies just because you're physically in Canada?
I never got that far. As soon as the judge realized that they were clearly lying and in violation of my rights, he threw the second witness off. He never even got halfway through his testimony.
Okay, but what about
had to ask the cops about it.
Oh, but what about the first witness?
He never let me ask questions to the first witness. Actually, I think I was asking about cause of action. Yeah, I did actually get to ask that question. I asked, "Did you file a cause of action?" I heard you ask this before. I was just winging it, right? I asked, "Did you file a cause of action?" And actually, the judge again, he stepped in at this point. And he said he's not required to file a cause of action. And then I said, are you covering for the witness? And then he was quiet for a moment. And then they just, I don't know, they shuffled around and stuff like that. They didn't come back to the question. And they just dismissed that witness and brought the second guy on. And then when the second witness was obviously lying, and the judge he didn't even let him get through his testimony. He just said, step down.
Good job. I just point out real quick, and I'll cover more in a show tomorrow, that we want to go right for the throat and not do the cause of action kind of stuff. We don't need to. We go right for the throat. Did you determine on your own that because I was physically in Canada, your constitution laws applied to me and you had jurisdiction to stop me? That's the big one. And then you ask, what evidence do you have to support that claim against me? And then, of course, the judge will, or the prosecution, will definitely be on his feet, objecting that it calls for a legal conclusion, which, hey, that's what they do. That's why you're there. For heaven's sakes, these people, yes, and you're a bunch of cretins. Don't take that out on Jermaine, though. Sorry. Did we lose Jermaine?
Hello?
Oh, no.
Hello? Yeah. Why?
Did we lose him?
Why? Yeah. I don't know why.
That wasn't 15 minutes.
But it didn't say anything. Usually a machine will say something.
Yeah. All right. Well, let me cut the recording there. Yeah, we actually lost him on the call there, so I'm sure it had nothing to do with me calling the people holding him hostage there and prisoner that they're calling them cretins. I think they would. It was a trouble with the line right from the start. Anyway, a mistrial on January 18th. All the underlying charges have been beaten. They have not refiled, and things I want to say, why this is significant. One, he did it without a lawyer in chains. So the idea that it's only a traffic ticket. This is not just a traffic ticket. This is a drug possession charge. So I'm going to go out on a limb, guys. I think a drug charge is considerably more serious than a traffic. And I'll talk about that a little more when we get back. And if you want to join me, 218-632-9399. The passcode 2020 #. We'll be back in just a moment. Don't go away. Yeah, it's appropriate to have, as the bumper there, Rush. since we have a mistrial for Jermaine in Canada. So welcome back here to the No State Project. You want to join me on the big show today, you may do so at 218-632-9399, 218-632-9399. The passcode is 2020, the pound sign or hashtag. So 2020 and the hashtag or the pound sign, and you're in. It's supposed to be in the recording. Maybe the recording's changed. I have to listen to it, but it used to be in the recording. That's why people would call and get through. I never had to give the call and I never had to give the number over the air, but it is on the website now. I did change that. So when you look at the number on markstevens.net, it does have 2020 with the pound sign there. So you can get in. And then Skype, you can also do Frank Rizzo 3. Instant message me first and say, hey, jackass, I want to be on the show. And then I'll bring you up, as I'd like to do, during a commercial break. Different than when we do the Wednesday live show, which we will be live, of course, this Wednesday. It'll be the first show in March. I think it's March 1st. And there I have no choice. We don't have, but it's still a matter. You still need to instant message me first, even on that show, because you get me when I'm already on with somebody. It's kind of annoying. So big congratulations to Jermaine. It's kind of bittersweet because they're still holding him for the failure to appear charge. The underlying charges have been defeated already, so it's going to be a fight. It's going to be a fight. And so some of the takeaways here are he did it without a lawyer. He made a principled stand against these criminals. And yes, I do always give the facts to support my accusation at the criminals. They're criminals for no other reason than they force us to pay them. And the thing is, that's not all they do, that they provide roads. It doesn't matter what you do after the fact. You do not change the immorality and the criminality of the act because you do something nice for your victim. Okay? It's called emotional manipulation. Criminals. And if the judge, like the critics think that the discovery material that we're asking for is not discoverable, it's not necessary, he would not have ordered the prosecution twice to comply with the discovery request. And if he thought that there was some things in there that weren't valid, he would have said, you don't have to comply with 125. That's what they do. That's what they do. And it's a hell of a lot more serious than a traffic ticket. And it's crossed an imaginary line. It's in a different so-called country. So kudos to Jermaine, and we'll be doing what we can through next week to get him out. So hopefully he is home soon. He's been on the show before. We got Jay in Texas. Jay, welcome back to the show.
What do you say there, Mark?
It's been quite a week. I'm glad it ended. I'm glad the week ended with some good news, though. So that made my whole week to hear Jermaine say that, because I had no idea that had happened. None of us did.
Yeah, I just got privy to it. I guess yesterday evening when I was popping around and here and there, and it came up, and I got to read up on a little bit of that. And I got to say that. It's just even more of a victory that he's doing this while in confinement. It is so debilitating to not have your freedom and the resources that it provides. And so for him to win this in the situation that he's in is even more astounding.
Yeah, he does not have all the resources available that a real lawyer would have. Right? He doesn't have thousands at his. He is chained. He is in lockdown for 23 hours, and he had to deal with the bullying from the judge. It's not bad enough the poor guy is sitting in jail defenseless. No, when he does try to defend himself in court, he has to have the judge bully him and intimidate him even further from making it and raising certain issues. And here's another thing, too, for the critics. You can tell somebody their argument is wrong without using bully tactics, okay? But see, what this ultimately comes down to, Jay, all of this crap, all of this nonsense regarding so-called legal logic, all of it comes down to what I wrote about in Adventures in Legal Land. Is it possible that what you think is real is just a public relations scheme? Because under all that damn paperwork, under all your stupid legal logic, that it flies in the face of traditional rational thought, even by their own admission, it is only to cover the fact that there are a group of killers, thieves, and liars. They are forcing us to give them money under threat of death and threat of incarceration. All of this legal crap. This is what, and you, oh, Mark, take a breath. Screw anybody who tells me to take a breath. These are real people. Real people. This call was from a real flesh and blood man. He was being in lockdown for 23 hours. And if anyone out there thinks that someone who is not accused of a real crime, it's mala prohibita, who has already defeated the charges, should be locked down for 23 hours a day, you are a psycho, or you have blatant psychopathic tendencies. No one who's not a threat to the safety of other people should be in lockdown for 23. Shouldn't even be in jail. But again, I'm taking this is your call.
Hey, not a problem. I mean, in my past experience, you know, you are entitled to access to the law library, but it's at their terms. It's under their, the guise of their sense of freedom. They decide when you can. So you don't have that or direct on-call arrangement with an attorney, or your legal findings that you yourself have. You don't have access to that stuff. I mean, by the time he gets that stuff, delivered to him or whatever the case may be, who knows what status he's going to be in. And I will say that on the other hand, he does kind of have an interesting thing. The judge can't threaten him with incarceration. He's already locked up. So at least he can go in there with the confidence that, what else can you do to me?
Well, he's not looking at a lot of time, but the judge could order more time, and that would suck. The man wants to get out, and I don't blame him for that. And he made it clear on there. I'm going to point this out, and I'm going to throw some attaboys at the No Stay Project here. And I don't give a damn what anyone says is the takeaway from this. He was locked down for 23 hours a day, got a mistrial on his own without a law library, and he did it based on what he learned from us in the No Stay Project chat.
You're here.
Yeah, you could turn around and say, but he didn't win on a jurisdiction issue. It doesn't matter. He successfully defended himself. A non-lawyer defended himself against very serious charges and got a mistrial. Now, you could, well, they can always refile, Mark. Yeah, they can. No kidding. I've said that like 8 times already. They haven't in 5 weeks. And to do so, they already know that the witnesses are lying, are liars. In fact, so we already know. So the fact is, they're not going to. If they refile, they're doing it knowing that their only 2 witnesses are liars. That's not a benefit. That's no. All they can do is make excuses. They can't just say, you know what? Damn good job. You're a non-lawyer. You learned on your own. You did the role playing. You learned some basic principles of logic. And damn it, you went in there and in chains, you got very serious charges, basically thrown out. They can't do that. They can't admit that there's any validity to the way we do things at the No Stay Project. They cannot admit that. It is the death knell. Oh my gosh! You mean you don't have to spend $15,000, $20,000, or $30,000 on some lawyer to plea deal? You can actually go to trial and beat the snot out of them? Yes, you can. Doesn't mean that there's no work involved, but that doesn't mean you have to be a so-called black belt or a ninja. You just have to understand basic principles of logic, knowing someone is talking out of their ass, which is not difficult.
Well, him going in there and doing what he did, I mean, let's face it, 99% of the people who go in there don't have a clue what they're doing. And so, quite frankly, the courts are not prepared for somebody of his caliber. And even if he did just learn it, he pulled it off.
Right, but Jay, we're up against a break, so I want to just fit this in. The thing is, somebody is actually claiming that 75% of the time tickets are dismissed even if you don't file and defend yourself, which is ridiculous, that 75% of traffic tickets are thrown out. We'll be back in just a moment. Don't go away. Yeah, there's somebody, a critic, who's actually made the statement that 75% of traffic tickets are thrown out anyway, whether you defend against it or, I mean, it's absolute insanity. Traffic tickets are basically like the tax court. There's like a 95% conviction rate.
Right.
To say that 75% of the time traffic tickets are thrown out, whether you defend yourself or not, is just madness. And it just shows how dishonest and how deluded people are who profit from the system and benefit from it. So this guy, I think, is a lawyer. And he's the one that said, anyway, it doesn't matter. I got to take a breather, but we got about 4 minutes, okay?
Okay.
All right, I'll be right back. I'm going to mute you up. Yes, welcome back to the No State Project. I'm your host, Marc Stevens, author of Government Indicted, and we'll get back to Jay in just a moment. But he can't hear this, but on the live stream, it's the opening bumper is, of course, Panthera. You're listening to the second of 3 hours of Anarchy Radio right here on LRN.FM. And we also have a fourth hour commercial-free on Wednesdays, and I believe that will be March 1st. So if I got that wrong, just know that next Wednesday at 4 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, then we are broadcasting another hour of Anarchy Radio. And if you're just tuning in, make sure you listen to the podcast because you have the call from Jermaine where we got some updates from jail yesterday. He is in jail in Calgary, and he was able on his own in chains without the assistance of a lawyer. Was able to get a mistrial on the charges. 2 cops ruled to be liars, and they have not refiled the charges. So from January 18th, when it was declared a mistrial, they have not refiled the charges. They are stayed. So I doubt they're going to refile, especially with 2 known liars. But hey, prosecutors put lying cops on the stand all the time. It's called test-a-lying. The cops lie so often, there's a phrase that lawyers use called test-a-lying. And the reason why there's passion here, and I'm not going to apologize for that because I think that would be stupid. I believe in what I'm doing, and we are helping people. This is yet another where we're able to help. He got a mistrial. These are real people. And yes, it bothers me tremendously when people who are not even accused of violence are being locked down for 23 damn hours a day. If you support something like that, you need to see a psychiatrist because there's something wrong with you. If you can actually get behind that kind of violence, boy, that's definitely not someone I want around. But welcome back to the show, Jay.
Yeah, that rings so true in my ears because I don't think we've ever gotten into, but I actually beat a felony case in trial because the cop lied, and my attorney called him out on it and said, and it was a beautiful setup, and the jury saw the whole thing play out, and I mean it was just straight up lied on that stand, and I knew he was lying, and I talked to her, and she said, okay, here's what we're gonna do, watch this, and hold my beer. And she nailed him. And so, yeah, I can attest to that. They most certainly will lie on the stand.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing is the prosecutors lie. The prosecutor is lying directly, whether you want to say it's by omission or commission. All right, when the witness, when he knows point blank. He knows that every step of the way that you've been asking for a witness with personal first-hand knowledge to prove that a written instrument from 1910 or wherever applies to you just because you're physically in Canada. He knows he doesn't have a qualified witness. Yet you put they put him on the stand over your objection, refusal to allow a voir dire, because yes, everybody, these few critics, I do understand and I did not cherry pick Rule 602. I know that the personal knowledge can come from the witness's own testimony. That's not what we're talking about. We know ahead of time they don't have that. And the prosecutors will always impeach their own witness that they're not qualified to make legal determinations. Yet that's exactly why Jermaine is where he is, because some cops made legal determinations against him.
Yep.
So the prosecutor knows and puts him on the stand anyway. It just reminds me of that line from The Devil's Advocate. What did you do? You put that lying bitch on the stand anyway.
Yeah, it's funny that my wife and I were talking last night, and it gets referenced so much in this house because it's such a great movie. But My Cousin Vinny really and truly is a 101 for people because it's pretty much factually based as far as the process and the procedures and the way the whole thing plays out. They embellish here and there, but for the most part, it really is kind of a 101 for dummies as far as how the court system works. And, we always just get such a kick out of it, even though they made a comedy out of it. They did a good job, because there are points to be found in that movie.
Oh, yeah.
Just for anybody who's never even been through it. If they ever find themselves in it, I guarantee that's probably, if they've seen that movie, it's going to pop into their head,
Yeah, there's a lot to that. You can also see what a typical scumbag judge does. Like when he says, Mr. Gambini, that was a well thought out, lucid argument. Thank you, Your Honor. Denied. He didn't have any he had no grounds for it. It was a legitimate, objection, but he denied it without explanation. And some may say, he doesn't have to give you an explanation. Screw you. Don't give me this. Yeah, because under all that damn paperwork is a gun. So the idea that you can affect someone's life in a huge way, he doesn't have to give you an answer. Yeah, because he's a criminal. That's the way dishonest people operate. When you say he doesn't have to give you an explanation, you're saying, Mark, I agree with you. Under all that paperwork is a gun and a prison system, and they're a bunch of criminals.
And unfortunately, he was not well versed enough to know how to attack that. But it was kind of a moot point for the movie itself. But there again, he was learning as he went along, which is, the last place you want to learn is, in the courtroom, as we find out, in our dealings with them. Listen, I do have something that just developed. My wife, and believe, I will precursor by saying my wife supports every bit of what I'm doing up to a certain point. And I think that point comes when it involves her. But now she just got 2 tickets yesterday, expired registration, and she was in the HOV lane, which here is the high occupancy vehicle.
Right.
Are you familiar with it?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So she got caught in that. She said, "There's never a cop there." Well, there was this time. So my question to you is, how much success could I have if I could I deal with these tickets for her?
They're probably not going to allow that unless you're going to claim that you were the one behind the wheel.
That's not going to happen because the cop would go, no.
No, so you can't do that. So if sometimes with the parking ticket, it's easy to do there. But here you don't have that option. So
right.
You can help behind the scenes. They're not, you can help with the paperwork. You can help, she needs to get and do the role playing, but they're not going to let you speak.
That's not going to happen.
No, you're in Texas. You're not in England where they allow a McKinsey friend. They allow an ex-friend here. They call it an ex-friend, same as a McKinsey friend, but they're douchebags about it.
Yeah, and my wife just isn't going to have that, and I got to give her that space because she helped me through when I had to go through my trial. She was there by my side, and I'll never forget that. But I can't pull her in like to that depth. So it's a registration. We'll pay the money for that. She can take an online course to kill the HOV thing, and I'll just have to eat it, because it's just not worth the fight when it involves her. If it were me, I'd be all over it,
Sure.
I'm not running out there trying, because I run around with a bullseye on my back all day because I don't have my license is suspended and tags are out, and it's an ugly deal, and I'm fighting it every day, and I'm getting nowhere. Texas says I can't appeal an administrative decision, and they consider that license suspension as administrative. And I contacted them, and they sent me a letter that said it's not appealable. Well, what's my relief then?
Oh, if they're saying it's not appealable, you may have to file something in court, but you're fighting a battle, to get a license reinstated so that you're not, and the only reason why you're getting it is so that you can travel relatively unmolested by them. But there may not be a remedy. It may not be something that they're allowed. I would look to see if there is an administrative hearing available with the DMV, but other than that, you probably don't have a remedy. We're up against a break. We'll be back in just a moment, so don't go away.
Okay.
Yeah, there may not be. You have to check the rules and see if there is an administrative hearing available. Otherwise, unless there's an active case in court for the underlying traffic ticket, then you probably don't have a remedy.
Yeah, see, and as I discussed with you before, this all stems from an out-of-state suspension, and it just carried over in Texas. So
sure.
I had no due process to begin with, and so I was, I don't know if you were in on it, but a couple of Saturdays ago, I got in on that chat, and that was quite an adventure. And I got to give you kudos. This whole Skype thing, trying to keep track of all this is just, and you do it so smoothly. But I mean, you've been doing it a long time. I'm very new to it, and I find myself going, okay, where am I? What page am I on? Who said what? And so I just kind of keep it on one page until we get done. But I got in that chat room, and I really didn't get any of the answers I wanted. I know, Gary said, it's the Texas that's the immediate threat. Florida can't really do anything to me, so don't worry about it. But that's where it stems from until.
I got to be real quick because I got to bring somebody else up. But what you may have to, I think I remember talking about this. You may have to get some kind of process if there's a process available to overturn the decisions in Florida. Because if you can overturn the decisions in Florida, that should be enough to get them to unsuspend the license in Texas.
Right. But I've still gotten nowhere with Florida yet, so,
Yeah.
I'm kind of going in 8 different directions, and, still ended up in a dead end.
I understand. Well, we'll have to see what's available if you can get a motion to vacate the judgment, and that might lead to having to appeal that, or having to file an original action to reverse that, say a petition for writ of prohibition, but it's not going to come easy. So, hey, I appreciate the call.
All right, take care, bud.
You have a good one, Jay.
All right.
Welcome to the No State Project, where try and have a rational discussion with some of these critics. It's like pulling teeth. Whatever they got to say to crap all over the work. So here again, I'm sure there'll be the same stupid things that will be said about Jermaine having a mistrial. It had nothing to do. It's not just, we don't just do jurisdiction. We spend an awful lot of time showing how easy it is to cross-examine effectively a police officer or a tax agent. So it's not like some have said, oh, he's a one-trick pony. No, we spend an awful lot of time talking about cross-examination and questioning agents in general. And a lot of what we do here on the show doesn't even involve court. People are like, oh, court's a different language. It's different logic. It's not always in court. It's not always in court. But I'll address this thing about legal logic later if we have a chance. We're getting a lot of calls as usual. Hopefully we can get to everybody today. If not, I will preemptively put out that we are commercial free for an hour or so on Wednesdays. So definitely, if we can't get to you today, check that out. But we have a new caller. I have to hit the right button. We have area code 574. You're live on the No State Project. What's your name? Where are you calling from? Okay. There it went. Area code 574. You're live on the No State Project.
Hey, Mark. It's Tristan McDonald.
Oh, okay. We don't need to give the whole name, but Tristan, it's good to have you on. Where are you calling from?
Awesome, man. I'm calling from Mishawaka, Indiana.
Indiana. Is that near Hannibal?
Yeah, Hannibal. I'm not completely sure. I've never heard of that town, to be honest.
Is that a fictional town from Cheers? Because Woody was from Hanover. I'm sorry, Hanover. Is there a Hanover, Indiana?
Hanover. Yeah, that again. I'm not sure. I'm from northern Indiana. If that rings a bell.
Okay, I figured I'd just throw that out. It has no relevance whatsoever to the conversation.
Right. Well,
but we use a different logic here. We're using legal logic. So things like non sequiturs and rational thought, we're talking about legal stuff. So I can say things like that and just say it's Marc's logic and everything's okay.
Right.
All of a sudden everything is okay. Just create your whole new logic to justify forcing people to give you money. Okay.
Yeah, I completely understand, man. I've come in the same boat where these individuals, they come up to me and they tell me, yeah, you owe us $2,000 to reinstate your license to even drive your vehicle. And I'm like, man, how these guys, they come up to me and they tell me I owe them all this money. And I didn't even do anything to them. I didn't even, and I'm just like, what, how can these people do this to me? How can they empty my pockets? And it feels like it's so threatening because money is the bloodline to civilization, and to buy food, to buy a house, to live, and they're just taking it from me without me even for no really criminal action. And I'm like, man, I can't do anything about it. And I've been reading all kinds of stuff on Albert Einstein, on Benjamin Franklin, on in the quotes that they've said before. And I'm like, man, these tremendously intellectual individuals say these inspiring quotes. Obviously they mean something. So I'm obviously going, I found all the information from you, Mark, from your on how to not necessarily beat the system, but not be oppressed by the system. And I just wanted to call in and maybe for you to explain some of the documents that are pretty much granting my freedom to me, because I want to know more about them. I feel like they're so valuable that my brain needs to understand them for me to be able to spit them out like they're like extremely easy to say, because they not necessarily get rid of all this stuff, but they grant me my rights. Really, they grant me my true freedoms and my ability to have liberty in my pursuit of happiness. And I feel like it's essential to understand these documents and to be able to reiterate them accordingly to individuals that try to oppress me.
Well, the short answer here is, if you don't like it, why don't you just leave?
Leave? What do you mean?
If you don't like the government that's in place, why don't you just leave?
Well, it's everywhere. How can I just leave?
I'm trying to be. These are the jokes, people. See, that's a common retort that you get. It's a way of blaming the victim. Why don't you just leave? Does that excuse the criminal nature of the actions being taken against me? Well, just leave. That's why I had a critic actually say, you're free to leave. You can leave. He's under the impression you can leave the United States without. He's under the impression you can travel without permission. And if you don't have ID or a driver's license, now the suspension of the license, was that due to a court judgment?
That was due because it was not holding an SR22. That it was the suspension of the license.
Did they give you a ticket and you had to go to court?
What happened was I was at this gas station and a lady backed into me. And when she backed into me, I reiterated to the police officer that I didn't have insurance. And he was like, well, I'm not going to give you any ticket or anything. They're going to do this. They're going to just suspend your license, give you an SR22. And that's what they did. And because I didn't give them money. I didn't give the insurance companies money to issue an SR22 to the courthouse. They were like, well, you can't drive at all. If you get caught driving, we're going to give you more tickets, and you're going to owe us more and more money. And I'm just like, man, how? And it's insane. I don't get it. And I'm like, and my parents, my uncles, my mom, I'm 20 years old. I'm a college student. I'm an engineer. I study robotics because I think it's fun. And my whole family is like, man, Tristan, you're stupid. You don't know anything. You should. And my uncle, and I quote, yesterday, he was like, well, it's better. You're better off to just submit to authority. You're better off to submit to authority. And in a quote from Albert Einstein, I'm looking at right now on my computer screen, says, unthinking respect for authority is the greatest enemy of truth. And I'm like, man, like, I understand he's my uncle, but there's something wrong here. I don't get it. And I'm trying to understand it. And I'm trying to get it I'm trying to beat it in my head to where like I said before, I can spit it out like it's nothing. And that's the only true way I can receive my freedoms granted to me. And I'm at a loss here, not knowing.
Well, it sucks. There are going to be things that we have to do to be left alone. I won't get behind the wheel of an automobile unless there's a current tax tag on it. That it just, it sucks that we have those things that we have to do. So we'll discuss this on the other side of the break about what you can do to get around this. And it may just be at this one you might have to bite the bullet, but we'll see. We'll be back with Tristan in Indiana in just a few moments here on the No Stay Project, so don't go away. Welcome back to the No Stay Project. I'm your host, Marc Stevens. I want to get right back into it. And if you want to join the show, it is 218-632-9399, 218-632-9399. The passcode is 2020, and the pound sign or the hashtag 2020, and the pound sign gets you in. And you can also instant message me on Skype at Frank Rizzo 3, and we can get you on board that way. Do not call during a live segment. Just instant message me first, and then we can bring you up. So, all right, Tristan. First is you're free by nature, not because some document says so. So I wanted to clear that bit up. But here, for example, the driver's license is permission so that you can travel relatively freely, and you have to do a cost-benefit analysis here. It may be a situation where the options really aren't available to you to get this tossed out. It may be that the easiest thing to do, as much as it sucks, is to just pay for the SR22 so that they'll unsuspend it. Because there's no court case against you so that you can go in and have that defeated, and then once it's thrown out.
I do have a trial. They issued me a trial.
Oh, I thought you said he wasn't giving you a ticket.
No, I didn't say that. I've already taken the motion to dismiss that I purchased from you.
Oh, okay.
I've already filed it with the St. Joseph Superior Court, and I've given it to I've given them 2 copies, one for the judge, one for the prosecutor, and I've already taken one of those to the police officer that issued the claim against me. And they gave me a trial date and also a record date. And obviously, like you said, under threat and coercion, issued a warrant if I don't show up. So I have to go. And if I don't go, they're going to send guys with guns to come to my house and kidnap me. Okay. Well,
so that may be where if you can get this tossed out, which we have got a pretty good track record, then you can have that reversed. You need to do the role playing, though. It's not a matter of just like Jermaine.
I completely understand, and I also purchased that as well. The criminal. Let's see here. I gotta open up my email.
You got the criminal script.
Yeah, I have the script as well.
Good.
And obviously I bought your book too, indictment of the government, or indictment government.
Government indicted.
I bought that as well, or government indicted. Sorry, I'm trying to get as much information as I can out at once. And I also bought that, and I was reading that last night, and I woke up today and I was like, man, I got to get up, I got to get ready for his show, and make sure I call in and maybe speak to him. So I've been everything that you've been stating and saying to do. I've been doing, and yes, and when I went into the courtroom for arraignment, I walked in the courtroom. Obviously, there was a bunch of people in there, just like cattle. They walked in, they didn't bring any papers with them. They sat down, they walked up to the stand, they said, "Okay, here, you got to pay this, you got to pay that, and see you later." And just like you explained, the system was going to work. It worked exactly the same way. And I walk up there, I bring my paperwork, all that up there, and I'm like, okay. Is it okay if I ask you some yes or no questions? And immediately the judge just goes off. I'm talking like, you can't ask me any questions. No, you can't do that. And even the bailiff, the police officer, he comes up to me and starts putting his hands on me and is like, "Sir, you need to quit. You need to stop. You're getting the judge." I'm like, whoa. I'm not. There is, and I was even threatened by the public defendant I received my waiver from. I was even threatened by her about being held in contempt if I go up there and question a judge. And like I said before, I walked up there and I was talking to the judge. I was like, "Okay, is it okay if I ask you some yes or no questions?" And the funny thing is that I noticed was the judge immediately after he got all angry and started making opinions. He said, "Oh, you're doing a horrible job being your own representative. You're doing a horrible job." And I even stated to him, I was like, "Well, that's your opinion, sir." And he was like, "Wow, well, you can't be doing that." And like I said before, the bailiff police officer had his hands on me and everything. And
talk about bully
I was
tactics.
Explaining to him. You said what?
Well, it's bully tactics, and the idea that you can't question someone who's forcing you to be there. And I don't usually. I would recommend that we just go straight into: has the prosecution, when they want a plea, has the prosecution presented sufficient evidence to prove this written instrument applies to me, and that there's any jurisdiction to require a plea? Don't ask permission; just ask the question. If he's going to flip out and start getting upset because he's a child, not because he's a professional, and anyone says that someone flipping out and using bully tactics is just being professional, you don't know what the word means. Normal people, I'm using it. Normal people do not respond with bully tactics to being asked a question. They would just politely say, "Sir, that's not what we're doing here today. We're here just to take a plea. Now, what is your plea?" And then you could go right in. "Well, I intend on pleading guilty, but has the prosecution met their prima facie burden at this point to prove this written instrument applies to me, and if there's any jurisdiction?" So,
and that's true. I did exactly what you said.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Just before we're out of time, because we got other people that have been I need to get to. What are the points of concern for you? What questions you have? What do we need to do to help get you?
I need like reassurance. Like, am I doing it right? Because I'm trying to follow pretty much everything that you said to a T, and into kind of assure my freedom, and because that's what is that question here. These people are trying to coerce me into their rules. They come at me in threat of my life, really. And I'm trying to understand. Am I doing it right? Am I fighting it right? Am I going against it right? Am I not submitting? Am I still subject? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I don't want to.
They're gonna use coercion. They're gonna use coercion against you until the gatekeeper, the judge, does the right thing and tosses this crap out. So that's a given. They're going to continue their threats until the gatekeeper does the right thing. You need to just stick to the principles of the burden of proof is on the accuser. And when you go into court, even under their legal logic, yes, evidence is required for jurisdiction. And anyone who says that does not understand jurisdiction. You need to have evidence. You need to have proof, more than just identifying a particular statute as if that statute has already been proven to apply. The fact is, you still have to have physical location, and in a lot of places, you have to have a dollar amount. So to say that facts are not a part of the equation for jurisdiction, you're an idiot. If you think that, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. You do have to have that. Okay, so the burden of proof is on them, and they're making a claim that a written instrument that's real, it is not theoretical, it is not abstract, it is a real written instrument that you can actually you can see it with your own eyes. I have certified copies of one. And so when you make a claim like that, even as one of these critics said, a legal claim is not philosophical. So asking for proof of that legal claim is not philosophical. So keep that in mind, that you're only asking questions to bring out the contradictions in their rules, which don't apply to anybody, but they think they do. You bring out the contradictions between their rules and their actions. They're doing things at the barrel of a gun. They're coercing you. A warrant for your arrest is a death warrant. If you do not comply with them, they will kill you. So keep those principles in mind. All you're really doing is holding the prosecution to their burden of proof, and you have to know that they have a witness with personal first-hand knowledge. If the police officer is testifying that you broke the law or that he watched you violate the law, he has to have personal knowledge that that applies to you. They can argue with you all they want. There's no escaping that, because if they don't apply Rule 602 correctly, then they're denying you a fair trial and you're showing that they're just a bunch of criminals, which is what the object is. We get these things thrown out not by saying the merits are wrong. We get them thrown out because we show that they're crooks, every single one of them. We're out of time. I appreciate the call, Tristan. My name is Marc Stevens. We'll be back here on the No State Project with your calls and more, so don't go away. We'll be right back. I appreciate the call, Tristan. Keep in touch and get to. They should be doing role playing right after the show.
One more question. Question, Mark. What should I continue studying to get the most knowledge out of?
Well, in Government Indicted, there is the model. So you want to go over the model, what you're doing out. You're asking questions, you're asking clarifying questions to bring out the contradictions, and you want to know a lot of the objections they'll make and all the stupid retorts that they'll make so that you'll know how to object properly and keep them on point. Their job is going to be to keep you off their Achilles heel. Your job is to keep the focus on it. And so that will help you then when you start doing the role playing, because you'll be familiar with a lot of the stupid responses that you're going to have to respond to. So it won't be a surprise. And just know, nothing can really be a surprise that they throw at you if you apply the principle of the Socratic method. Ask them to verify the position, and then, or whatever it is that they're saying, and then ask a who, what, where, when, why, or how question. Such as, if they say something stupid to you, like, you're asking for evidence the Constitution applies to you, and they say, well, don't you have a driver's license, or don't you have the ticket? You say, objection. Is it really your position that the evidence proving the Constitution applies to me is on the ticket? And then when they say yes, then you follow up with, how so? How in the hell? Well, actually, no.
I get completely what you mean. I'm just trying to get it I'm trying to understand it to a point to where I can spit it out like a freaking robot.
Well, that's what's going to be the benefit.
To me.
Yeah, you need to do the role playing to do that. The role playing is what's going to do that. And if I had time, I would do
the role playing. It comes from the criminals. It comes from the script, right?
Using the criminal script and role playing with it is what is going to happen. Obviously, you'll write certain things down that you want to make sure that you do. So you'll put some notes on the script. But that's where you start. It's like sparring. You don't know how to box really until you spar, and that's the easiest way to explain.
That's completely true.
Yeah. So
and then also the record date. So the record date, I have to submit all my paperwork before the record date, right? I looked up the definition of the record date, and it's like the deadline to distribution or something like that.
The deadline for distribute, is that after the trial date or before it?
No, that's before.
That's before. Well, maybe what that phrase is about, it has to do with the the last day you can file a pretrial motion. So if you don't hear back from the prosecution...
Oh, so I have to file all of it. So if I don't hear back before the prosecutor, before the record date, then the trial is dismissed, right?
No. It's probably the last day that they will accept pretrial motions. So if you don't hear from the prosecutor in a reasonable time, let's say 20 days or 20, then file the motion in limine, a motion for prosecutorial misconduct before that record date. Okay?
Prosecutorial misconduct.
You can get that from me, so just contact me off air for that, okay?
Okay, sure.
All right, I appreciate the call.
Thank you.
Tristan in Indiana. Yes, welcome back to the big show. Live from the fortified compound in Mesa, Arizona. It's February 25th. Because under legal logic, normal people who use critical thinking skills and don't just take what someone says is true. We actually ask for verification and evidence and logic to back it up. We don't live in houses. We live in fortified compounds. Stupid. Anyway, if you want to join the big show today, 218-632-9399. The passcode is 2020 and the pound sign or the hashtag. And again, if you want to join a live broadcast here, like right now, do not, I'm going to have to put this on the homepage. Please do not call during a live broadcast, even when we're doing the Wednesday broadcast, even during that with no commercial breaks. I will bring people up on the air. Please stop calling during the show. If I don't pick it up, don't get offended. I may not have the opportunity to type an instant message to you to stop calling because I'm on a live segment. So please keep that in mind. It's not just one particular individual. It happens a lot, and it's happening a lot this particular show for some reason. So I don't want anyone to think I'm picking on them in particular. I'm not. So I want to bring up, we have another Canadian caller. Area code 7800. I don't know what name you want to use, but I believe you are calling from Canada.
Hey, Mark. It's Alan Nelson of the Beaujolais family up here in Canada. I'm a little bit infamous up here. The first, I don't know if you've watched our news or anything, but I'm the first paper terrorist up here, apparently. Alleged paper terrorist, even though it's an oxymoron. But so I just wanted to call. I got a couple of questions for you, and I just wanted to, commend you on helping that guy in Calgary. So the first thing, I could testify how, what kind of crooks they are here. And that's what they do. They basically intimidate you and extort you and lock you in 23-hour lockdown so that you can't talk to the other prisoners and tell them your ideas. And it's also, an intimidation tactic, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So I commend you on helping that guy, because I know what a dirty system they have here in Alberta. I've been dealing with them for 8 years now. So anyway, I wanted to, there's about three things I wanted to discuss with you here today. First of all, I was listening to I think it was last week's show where you had IBCM Catcher on.
Oh, jeez.
Hello?
I'm getting that thing. That guy is a little long in the tooth at this particular point, but okay, what?
Well, I was listening to the I guess argument you guys were having, discussion, and it just phases me. Like, these people, they can't take logic and reason. Like, what fazed me about his conversation, he was insisting that there is no presentable evidence to show that there's jurisdiction, when that's completely untrue. I mean, you use the boxing analogy for him, and I guess maybe he didn't clue into that. But, I've heard another analogy that could be very effective to, ICBM catcher, if you're listening. This is how you can prove that you have jurisdiction, okay? And I use the analogy of a military tribunal. When a soldier gets charged or something and they have to go to court, the JAG officer, the very first thing he does is bring up his, GI application and say, look, he's signed the thing. We have jurisdiction. He's given us jurisdiction. So there you go. There you have it. I mean, if you have an express agreement, some piece of paper that, somebody has signed to agree that they're going to follow your, fictitious little statute codes, well, then you can prove that. But otherwise, you can't. I mean, it's all, in a free society, it's all a matter of consent. And if you don't consent, then they have no jurisdiction. It's just that simple.
I don't like to use that because that is, it comes right from the Sovereign Citizen Handbook. And I know I got lumped in. You sent me that thing the other day, and that jackass went and lumped me in with sovereign citizens and freemen. And I don't do that. I would rather stick on look, because I know there can't be any proof because they are just men and women forcing us to pay them. So I just stick to show me the proof that your claim is true. And that's why you got to get these stupid things like, well, we don't require any evidence. That's
what they do. That's what they do to me all the time.
Yeah, we don't need. So that's why I stay. And to me, very rarely, in my experience, actually in court, do they actually make that claim. We don't have to prove that. I mean, I had a prosecutor up in Saskatchewan claim that, and she backed off of it right away. It's on markstevens.net. And I have Scott Bales, the Supreme Court Chief Justice here in Arizona. He never said it was an issue of philosophy or that evidence wasn't required. He tried to present what he thought was evidence and failed. So,
Well, to me, it's just a logical progression of an argument. I mean, like, if they're claiming that you violated their code, well, it's only logical to show that code applies to you first.
Yes.
Right?
Of course. Absolutely. Yes, that is sound logic. But to the critics and ICBM, they're saying the mere fact that might makes right, which he said was morally reprehensible, that means they are going to apply it to you. But that's not the issue. It's not just that it's that it validly applies to you because it also creates an obligation on you. So yeah, they are going to apply it to you, but does it create an obligation to comply? No. And only the clinically insane, or the criminally insane rather, would say that it does. That would be like saying, if I went into a bank with a machine gun and ordered that everyone give me the money that they have, that they all of a sudden they have a moral and a legal obligation to give me the money.
Another way of saying it maybe would be to make it more clear, I think, would be saying, well, can they show they have lawful authority?
I wouldn't put it in those terms because I don't care what their legal interpretation is.
Yeah,
I could not care. There was some. You posted something here that I wanted. I don't know if you've asked me this question. I don't know if you've brought this up yet.
I probably will. That's probably my third question.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, I wanted to get to. I was listening to a video of yours, and you had a Canadian. I think he was a lawyer. He came on, and he started arguing. He's had a pretty compelling argument about how the Canadian courts have inherent jurisdiction because under the Queen Bench Court, they actually, they have a written instrument that says that they have the jurisdiction and stuff. So I just wanted to, I wasn't able to finish. I don't know why I wasn't able to finish listening to that podcast, and I was just curious on what your response to that guy was.
Well, if I'm remembering correctly, I mean, I have a 45-minute interview with a law professor. I don't know.
I remember that one, and where he admits that there is no moral justification, right?
He said that jurisdiction is a blunt assertion of power. It's based on neither argument nor evidence.
Yeah, which is just illogical.
Well, I mean, it's true. I mean, but what I wanted to do was to get back so it would be morally justified to use a gun to put down one of those blunt assertions of power. I just didn't get the opportunity to, and that would have been a real moral dilemma in his mind. I think because he either has to contradict what he said or he has to admit the obvious that yes, you are morally justified to use a gun to put down a blunt assertion of power. It would have been nice to have been able to
well, I mean, it is only self-defense, right?
Well, of course, yeah, it absolutely is self-defense. I mean, if it's a blunt assertion of power, and even ICBM admitted that right versus might makes right is morally reprehensible. Yeah, of course. So here, when they do say, and this is how I respond to that crap, when they say that they have a rule, or which is all a law is a rule written by a man or a woman that gives the court inherent jurisdiction, they are presuming that their Constitution applies in the first place, which is why I always stick with the written instrument called the Constitution as the basis for all the other stuff. So if they can't show, we're up against the top of the hour break, if they can't show that their foundational rule, the Constitution, applies, nothing else is relevant. It doesn't matter what their rule books say, because it's all based on the Constitution. We'll be back with Al in Canada in just a moment, so don't go away. Welcome back to the No State Project. It's February 25th, 2017. Live from the fortified compound in Mesa, Arizona. I'm glad to be with you here. A lot of stuff still to get to. Hopefully we get to everybody. We always try to cram as much material as we can into the show. So we added a 4th hour of Anarchy Radio to Wednesday afternoons. So check that out. If you have a question, a concern, you wanted to learn how to prepare to effectively defend yourself, or if you're a critic who just thinks I'm full of crap, I'd love to hear a valid, lucid, well-reasoned argument. It doesn't matter that you won all these things. Anarchy is ridiculous. That's not, that just doesn't cut it. And if you think might versus right and a ruling class that gets into power by might makes right, you are an anarchist. That's because it's morally reprehensible. We're in agreement there. So, yeah, and the call number is 218-632-9399, and the passcode is 2020 with the #. So definitely check that if you want to join. And also Skype, instant message me before. Don't just call Frank Rizzo 3. Welcome back, a friend from Canada. So I'm sorry, I don't even remember where we were. I think we were talking about that that it was a blunt jurisdiction is just a blunt assertion of power. It's not based on argument nor evidence, and that was from a law professor, Robert Diaz.
Yeah. Well, and I kind of understood where he had kind of an argument there, saying that, well, if you participate in the electoral system, well, you've agreed to abide by the terms of the social contract or whatever. But still, that doesn't make it morally right to be able to just, like you say, make a blunt assertion of jurisdiction. I mean, it's only logical. It's only logical that if you're claiming that these codes apply to me, that you should have to prove that they do first before you can say that I've broken that code.
Yep. That's straight logic, whether they want to accept it or not. And the thing to do is, I don't agree with the proposition that if you participate in the electoral process that you're somehow agreeing. There's a huge difference between being able to have, let's just say, for sake of argument, a legitimate vote as to who the leaders are going to be of the criminal organization that is controlling your life. The important aspect here is that you are forced to pay them in the first place. The fact that you can pick a different prison warden every 4 years, what Spooner wrote, doesn't make you any less a slave. And you could classify it as philosophy, but that is the way the world works. That is real life. Just because you can pick a new prison guard doesn't make you any less a prisoner. And and this is something that ICBM had a huge problem. He just doesn't understand or wants to accept the cold hard facts. Nobody has a choice in paying them. No one has a choice on whether there's government or not. You don't. And that's the problem. Not who is running the organization.
Well, and that brings me to a point that I bring up with them all the time. I mean, if your society, your fictional society, is so great, then why do you have to force me to be a member of it? Right?
I think another way to say it too, like I've been saying all these years, if your services were so good, why do you have to have a prison system in order to get people to pay you?
That's right. And another point for ICBM. Okay, well, you know what? There is other ways of enforcement other than force, right? There's outlawry. There's ostracism. You know, there is a voluntary way of, enforcing the laws without actually using blunt force.
Yeah, but if all you're doing is enforcing the principle of do no harm, and people understand that and understand that self-defensive force is always morally justified, what you're doing is enforcing basically, property rights, and you're enforcing, bodily, to be secure in your, in your body, which we own, and I don't want to go down that road, but it's our body. We're on, and so as long as the services are just focused on protecting your body and your property, that's a no-brainer. So if someone's, at least as far as enforcement doesn't require using coercion to change people's behavior and to get them to do certain things like pay you.
That's right. Well, but I mean, and this kind of brings me on to my third point here, where, the whole thing really is just a big abstract idea and a big fraud that we all agreed to play in, right? So,
no, I don't agree. No,
the end,
I don't think we agree. I think we make a calculated decision that it's not a good day to die, and just like we mentioned on the last show about Eddie Murphy, the joke about the slaves. Hey, I'll bail the mother effing hay. Just get back with those whips. It's the same thing. It's the same thing with voting and paying taxes. Voting can be seen as nothing. To me, the only legitimate argument about voting is that it's an act of self-defense. Because, they'll even say you're voting for the lesser of the two evils. It's an act of self-defense. I don't want this son of a bitch hurting me more than this one.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't. Real quick. That's why I disagreed so much with him, because he kept on insisting that we agreed, and there is no agreement. We're not agreeing. We're all forced to pay. So. Yeah,
exactly. That's what they don't. These lawyer types, they don't seem to get that through their head that in the end, it's at a barrel of a gun.
Under all that paperwork, is a gun. I started.
Yeah, they can be polite and talk, eloquently all they want, but in the end, it's at the barrel of a gun.
Yeah, and this idea, I'm sorry.
And to me, a free society. If you even look up the definition of a society, it says it's a voluntary thing that people enter into voluntarily, right?
Yeah.
So, well, and that kind of brings me, like I said, to my third point here. We were kind of discussing on the Skype there, and I was saying that I get your point about the question that you're asking, and how does it apply just because I'm physically in Arizona or whatever. But for me, I go right to the jugular, right? To me, that's pandering to their psychosis, right? Because they believe that there's this fictional society set up and that it's real and yada, yada, when it's actually just a fiction of law, right? So, I go right for the jugular and say, well, can you even prove you have lawful authority for this court to exist in the first place?
I used to go about it a different way, where the prosecutor would claim to represent the state, and I would ask for proof, and they would get this deer in the headlight look because, no, you can't prove there's a state, and that's because there's no evidence. Not just because I'm an anarchist and don't, it's not provable. It's just, I've, over the years, especially working with people who aren't as versed and don't have the experience in court, it seems to be much easier to cut the weasel words out. And I think going for the jugular is hitting them right where they breathe. When we ask the question, where is your proof that your rules apply to me just because I'm physically in Arizona, you're stripping out all the legalese. And you're keeping, and this is another thing that the critics don't get, I am going to do my damnedest to keep those bureaucrats from using political language, and I'm going to use lay terms. And so I am the one asking the questions. And so what I recommend to people is do not fall for this. And we'll get back to the weasel words after the break. I'm writing that down. I want to make sure I don't forget that. You and we have to dictate the flow of the conversation. If they're going to inject words like state, you want to say objection. What are you trying to convey to me? What is the physical referent to that word? What do you mean by when you say state? Do you mean the ground only? But we'll finish that in the next segment, so we'll be right back. Welcome back to the No State Project here on LRN.FM, the Liberty Radio Network, live for February 25th, 2017. We will be live, of course, on Wednesday for an additional hour. And maybe somebody could present some rationale, some logical argument. Not this crew. You see, and that's the thing. We'll bring a caller back. And that's the thing that really kills me is if you go back to when they first started, they hadn't had their stupid, their so-called legal logic in place yet. They had to take control over a certain geographic area with violence and then start with that legal crap. What I was mentioning before the break is I think it's very important for us to only use lay terms as much as possible with these people, because every time they say something, there is so much baggage to the word that like using the word resident. When you call somebody a resident, you're not making a statement of fact. You're giving a legal conclusion. And it doesn't just mean...
It's all fraudulent use of language, right?
Oh,
the word resident has 9 different definitions, so which one is it, right?
But bottom line, though, is that it's not a statement of fact. It's not like saying, Terry is my neighbor. Because he lives right across the street. That's a statement of fact. But when you turn around and say someone's a resident because they live in Arizona, whoa, there's a lot of there's a lot of other legal conclusions that come with that. And one of them is it's basically the presumption that if you're physically in Arizona, a written document from 1910, no one bothered to sign, applies to you. And so
here's where I'm kind of a critic of yours, because if you were to ask me that question, I would say, how could anyone possibly be physically located in the state of Arizona when Arizona is actually just an abstraction created by, operation of law?
Okay, but you got to remember, my friend, is that I don't say state of Arizona. The question is, where is your proof, or what evidence do you rely on that this written instrument from 1910 applies to me just because I'm physically in Arizona? So I'm not talking about the fictional state, which for those critics, yes, the state of Arizona doesn't exist. In fact, if you look when you drive down I-10, so you won't know this, but others will, from down here, when you drive on I-10 from California and you cross over the Colorado River, or Colorado, depending on where you're from, okay, you're going to see a sign that says, "Welcome to Arizona." And then it'll have a thing that Arizona had its 100th birthday in 1912 because the state didn't exist prior to 1912. But see, I'm talking physical. I don't want them to. I don't use those, and I don't recommend that people do. You want the essence of their claim, and that is, if you're physically in Canada, their rules apply.
But still, I mean, it's still an abstraction, Mark. I mean, Arizona doesn't really exist. It's a kind of a collective hallucination, right? People agree to call that chunk of dirt Arizona.
Sure, but it exists. What we call Arizona does exist. What we call the state of Arizona does not. You can't point to... See, I sent you a stock photo. I could take a picture of myself out here in the middle of Mesa. Well, not in the middle, but I can show you a picture. And so you can see the physical area that we call Arizona. You can't send me a picture of the state.
Yeah, but still, like you say, you just call it Arizona. It doesn't actually exist. I mean, it's just something that people collectively agree to abide by or to agree on, right?
Well, that's true, but it
doesn't exist. I mean, if you ask a native if that's Arizona, he'll say, no, that's Turtle Island, right? So
yeah, but to me, it's not something that I've ever found that is helpful. And so if you listen to enough of the Call of Shames, it hits them so hard between the eyes. It's such a wake-up call. Hey, so I'm going to keep going back to it. Scott Bales. I should put this in the podcast. My name is Marc Stevens. I host a radio show here in the Valley called the No State Project. A couple of questions going to the nature of the government that you are a part of. And I know that all governments, and I've had this confirmed by the Attorney General and other judges and prosecutors, that the argument is that if I am physically in Arizona, then the Constitution and laws of the government of Arizona apply to me, and you as the government would have jurisdiction over me. My question for you is, do you have any actual facts that would actually prove that argument's true? That's funny.
I'm not sure I understand the question, and I'm not sure that your proposition of what the legal principle is correct, because I'm not sure I heard you correctly. If you're asking, is it in fact true that if you're physically in Arizona, you're subject to the laws of this state, I think that's right.
Yes, and my question to you is that that's your argument, and that's what prosecutors and police officers are throwing peaceful people in prison for every day. Cops go out on the street, they see you, they feel, oh, he's physically here, our laws apply. We're going to go and investigate. My question for you is, do you have any actual proof, any empirical evidence, facts, to support that argument?
Yes, because people who are physically here and violate our laws are in fact prosecuted and incarcerated.
Well, that's what Bill Montgomery said. That's called an argument. Well, let me finish. That's called an argumentum ad baculum. That's not support for your argument. Just because you're physically willing...
You asked me if I had facts to support the argument, so an argument ad factuum is quite appropriate.
Well, he didn't answer the question.
I think you've got a couple tries, so maybe you can ask another time afterwards.
Okay, well, I had another question.
I think each person gets one, and you got two.
No, I got one.
You got two.
No, he didn't expand on the answer. Of course. When I asked the Supreme Court Chief Justice in Arizona in the ASU law school almost 2 years ago, I asked him point blank that same question. The best he could do was say, now he agreed, if I'm physically in Arizona, the laws apply. He agreed with that, physically. It had nothing to do with status, nothing to do with my name, physically on the ground. The best he could do was pull out the people that they've already prosecuted in prison is the evidence proving the laws apply to me. He didn't say, Mark, you're an idiot. There's no evidence. You don't need evidence to prove the laws apply. It's a matter of philosophy. No, please, he never said that. So the thing I would point out, and I'm not saying he's right just because he's a Supreme Court Chief Justice and he's very, very intelligent. He's right because it is not rational to think that a physical written instrument applies to a real physical man or woman or child just because of their physical location. There has to be proof.
No, and I understand that. I mean, I've seen your video there of logical fallacy for that, where you explain with, and I mean that's an awesome explanation to use the Catholic Church to explain that. right?
thank you.
Because, if I'm not Catholic, it's going to be totally reprehensible. And I understand that. But what I'm saying is really nobody can actually prove that any of these fictional made-up societies or states or even the physical location exists, because it's all just a matter of, an imagination in your mind that everybody's agreed to accept and agree on.
Yeah, but even if we didn't call it Arizona, we just had, imaginary borders on the map. If even see, I did this right, and it was stupid of me. I did it at the police station. Just standing in front of him, he could see where I was. We don't even have to call it Arizona. He said, "Look, do your rules apply to me just because I'm standing right here?" It's just for what I do and helping people and actually engaging them. To me, it doesn't make any sense to try to get into a discussion like that. I don't need to. I could just get their immediate agreement that is exactly how they're doing business. It doesn't matter about my status. Yeah. It doesn't matter if my name is.
I mean, at least you're meeting them halfway, right? You're meeting them halfway so that their psychosis doesn't make them snap or something when you actually bring up the real truth that, none of it actually exists. It's all just an operation, of law.
Well, what we do, but I remember in Skype, it is an operational language, yes. However, Arizona is real. What we call Arizona is absolutely objectively real, but that doesn't help us to, in my experience, because you have very little time to discuss it. Whether you're in court or out of court, we have very little time, and so it's better for me, like you said, I like the phrase because I've used it, you go right for the throat. Get them to admit that that's how they're doing business. Get them to admit that that's their psychosis. They believe a written instrument applies just because your physical location. And then you ask them for the proof, and that's proven to be very, very effective. We're out of time in the segment. I do appreciate the call. My name is Marc Stevens, listening to the No State Project here at LRN.FM. We'll do our best to get to everyone, so please don't go away. Force and Ignorance, of course, the great Rory Gallagher of Cork, Ireland. And there was a lot of songs that I could have chosen from Rory because, hey, Rory was the man. Look up Bullfrog Blues Live, France, and you'll understand. You'll understand. Brute force and ignorance. That's what it comes down to here. They use brute force and count on your ignorance and fear not to challenge them. So when people come out and say to you, you can't use legal logic in court. They use legal. Yeah, you damn well can. The idea that you can force me into that situation, and I am not going to use every tool at my disposal to get that thrown out, that I'm somehow not going to point out. And that's another thing. It's a straw man. I don't recommend that anyone go in and actually say objection non sequitur. I have said most of the objections are based on logical fallacies. That's why you're objecting. When you make an objection to something on relevance, what you're showing is basically the principle behind a non sequitur. This doesn't follow. This has no relation to the issue at hand. So the idea that legal logic or taking what you know is fallacious arguments and not using it in a legal context, I reject it because I'm not going to do... Look, I'm not supposed to go in there in the first place and even challenge the application of the Constitution. That is supposed to be verboten. And I say, screw that. I've done it for 20 years and we've been very successful getting these things tossed out. Regardless of what people say, the motion has been granted. It's not perfect, but it's effective. And so a lot of people said, you can't do that. You'll piss the judge off. I don't care. I'm going to do everything I can to make that as difficult as possible so that every step of the way, I'm showing that they are criminals. And I suggest you do the same. Because if you want to be successful in court, you have to be like what some judges said, you have to be belligerent. I'm not saying being disrespectful, but you have to object and you have to call them out on their BS. But we've got Parker on Skype from Washington. Parker, welcome to the big show.
Hey. How's it going?
It's going well. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. So, I'm sure that you have heard of this Supreme Court case back in 2005 where Jessica Gonzalez versus the city of Castle Rock, Colorado, where basically the Supreme Court ruled that the police have no obligation to protect you or your property.
Oh, that's one of many, many, many cases that say that.
Right. Well, I'm under the understanding that a legal agreement or a contract of some sort is I give you something and you provide me something. Of course, the social contract is in itself a fallacy.
Well, there's no evidence. There's no evidence to support it. In fact, the evidence is dead set against any proposition or argument that there is a social contract. Everyone is forced to pay. End of discussion. That's as far as I think you need to take that to defeat the social contract theory. And that's not in the same context as a scientific theory. It literally is just someone's claim. There's no truth to it at all.
Well, here's what I'm wondering. If I were to draft up a notice of cancellation and I were to send that to the chief of police in my town, the sheriff's office, the mayor, and were to send that to like the governor and all these other officials, what would be the end result of sending a notice of cancellation?
Nothing. They would just ignore it, and it wouldn't accomplish what you're. Well, let me ask you this though, because I honestly don't think anything would come from it. Other people have done things like that. I've never heard anything of any value coming from it. I see this in the same way as people doing an expatriation. No one can produce a single fact to show that there are obligations of allegiance in return for duty protection. And everyone who's tried will just say, because the Constitution says. Because they're presupposing they've already proven the Constitution applies. And that's just not, no, it's not evidence. So if you can't show that there's evidence of allegiance and a duty of protection, then the whole thing falls. And I want to point something out here very important. I have never claimed that on its own, these legal determinations show that there are no citizens because there's no duty to protect you. What I show is the fact that they are forcing you to pay them, which is an indisputable historical contemporary fact. That is proof that there's no obligation of allegiance and protection. Because people who force you to force you to pay them are not protecting you.
Right. Well, I have tried on multiple occasions to convince my parents and to convince my two older brothers and other people in my inner circle, friends and family, that essentially the government is nothing more than an organized crime syndicate, and that the taxes, quote unquote taxes that you pay, is nothing more than a protection racket. It's a mob tribute.
Yeah.
And the question is, how do you even go about convincing them or proving to them that with which you say is in fact a factually accurate statement?
I think what you have to do, like what I recommend people going to city council meetings, is first get a point of agreement and basically have an understanding of what your basic ethical and moral principle is. So I ask people, and it's always better to do it Socratically, to put the burden on them. They think this is real. They think it's legitimate. Let's just ask some questions to see if you can bring out a contradiction in that line of reasoning. If I was to, and just ask them point blank, if I was to do things the way people call government do them, because they're just people, and I force strangers to give me money, would you consider me a criminal? And I guess, well, yes, of course. Then just ask them more questions based on that. We already know if you do it, you're a criminal. And then you just, well, isn't government just men and women? Yeah. Don't they just force strangers to give them money? Well, yes. Wouldn't that make them a criminal organization then?
And there's no way for them to walk back things now, because it's like they're already painted into the corner at that point.
And they already agree if you did it, you would be a criminal. And so that's why I say so on every show. In order for them to justify those called government, they have to adopt a double standard that it's criminal for you to do it, but not for them. And that is a fallacious argument. That holds no water whatsoever. No, and in or out of court, doesn't matter. It is nonsensical to, and it is wrong to do that. And to try to force that on somebody is a double wrong. One, using the force, and then using a double standard to cover up that force. So keep the burden on them, and just be nice. Just ask them as matter of factly, because you're having a conversation, and you're going to have some people that just are going to, once they start going over this in their head, realize, oh my gosh, he's right.
Well, what I've noticed is that when I have
then you can invite them to listen to the show, and we can make let them know that they are not alone. It's not just you and your circle of friends and family in Washington. There's an awful lot of us out there, and it's growing every day.
Right. Well, what I've noticed is that every time I have or attempt to have a philosophical conversation with my mom about the fallacies that she holds so dear, she starts getting defensive. She starts getting all worked up. And I think that it's the same thing that you experience with judges in courts, where you try and challenge them on their beliefs, and you try and show that with which they believe is wrong, and they can't handle it. They can't be bothered to see or to be shown the truth, because to see the truth would be to acknowledge that you have been living a lie for the last 60 years.
Well, yes, and that's why you have to be. You want to get agreement with somebody's basic moral principle. Do you agree with the principle of do no harm? Well, yeah, of course. So it would be wrong to hurt people. Yeah, of course. And then then you go, well, if I was to do things, let me just ask. Okay, so let's extrapolate this a bit, Mom. Let's look at this and see let's see how consistent we are with this principle. If I was to force people I didn't know, perfect strangers in the neighborhood, to give me money, would that make me a criminal? Yes, because it violates the principle of do no harm. Yes, okay. Are there exceptions to that? You may want to say that to soften the blow a bit. I don't know if that will soften it, because if you ask some certain qualifying questions like that, she's going to really contradict herself later.
Yeah.
And it may not soften the blow. And, hey, I had to be confronted on a live broadcast with my inconsistency of thought, and that being with veganism. I can't get on the air and start talking about do no harm and then turn around and support animals that pose no threat to me having their throat slit, having to be electrocuted, or have a bolt driven into their skull. And so I'm glad he did it, but I had to be an adult about it. I mean, I'm not as old as your mom, but I had been doing that an awful long time, decades.
Yeah.
So yes, it might be uncomfortable, but if you're doing it in a loving, do no harm, love each other, attitude as family, it shouldn't be so bad. The people that have to worry is about when they have a drunk, an angry drunk for a parent.
Yeah.
They're not worth really getting into. You're not going to have a rational discussion with them anyway. But if you can, then just let them know you're not attacking them. You're not attacking their belief. You're just bringing out a contradiction in their beliefs.
I've told my mom, like, hey, I'm not attacking your personal character. This is not a personal attack. I'm just trying to show you the truth as I know it.
Yeah. You can let her see the video that I did with the law professor,
that might be a good way to go about it. But one thing that I'm going to sort of change the subject a little bit here. I sent you just now a thing in the chat. It's to this website called Voluntarist Wiki, where it has all the statist fallacies. Like,
oh, nice. I've seen that before.
Yeah. So one thing that might be good. You probably don't have time because you're really busy, and a lot of other people that are in this No State Project are also probably pretty busy. But one thing that might be beneficial is if someone were to go through and find all the fallacies that a judge will say on the bench, and you could call it like judge fallacies or something like that, and you basically just find all the fallacies that could possibly be posited by a judge, or at least all the large ones, and you put them in alphabetical order, and you put the fallacy and then the response.
Yeah, I think that's great. There's one for veganism also. The plants have feelings and all the other stupid things that people say. So yeah, that's been around for a while, and it is a good tool. And if she's open to it. And welcome back to the No State Project. We're back live talking with Parker in Washington. And this is a regular occurrence for some of us, whether you are on social media, you're doing it in person. The idea of anarchy. People, even if they understand that anarchy just means no rulers, no ruling class, not that there's no rules, but there's so much baggage that comes with it, and now they have to, these pseudo-anarchists that are breaking windows and whatnot, whether they're paid to do that or not, who knows. But it really does help, Parker, to meet people. We always have to start with the point of agreement and extrapolate from that, and just do it in a mild manner. I mean, if you go back and listen to and look, I mentioned off air, hey, Eyal of No State Project Israel, he didn't let me get away with it. I had to confront that I was being inconsistent and do it on a live broadcast, and I changed my behavior to conform with the facts and be more consistent with my belief. And so with your mom, or say, hey, look, I'm gonna say hi to Mike, Machine Gun Mike, listening to the show. It's always great to have him listening in. He's always got great comments, although not so much today, Mike. It wasn't too active on the chat, but he was in Vietnam. So when there's a lot invested in the concept, it can be tough. However, I think...
Indeed. Like, I remember when I first became a voluntarist. Actually, I remember I remember it was like, I don't know, I think 2012 or 2013, and I saw these anarchists that were promoting May Day in Seattle, and I just couldn't understand it. Like, I was spouting the same logical fallacies that I now combat, and all that. The only thing is that I don't know if these anarchists were anarcho-capitalists, the good kind of anarchist, or anarcho-communists, the bad kind of anarchist. And any anarchist, or any person that calls himself an anarchist and then goes out breaking windows and rioting and starting fires, they're not an anarchist, they are a statist.
Some can be, but basically communist is not statist as far as the doctrine, the principle. It is a matter of using socialism to get to a stateless society. I don't agree with...
So it's socialism I'm thinking about, not so much communism.
Whatever their beliefs a lot of people want to use, like some of the people you may be referencing may want to use the government for their own purposes, like Republican, Democrat. They both want government to do different things.
They want to control the gun of government and point it at their political opponent.
Sure, and so maybe some anarchists are doing the same thing. You have very prominent so-called anarchists doing that now when it comes to supporting Trump. where they say, I'm completely against the government, but I'm going to get behind this guy because he's going to make a difference. I don't even want to waste the time on my show because my show is about education, actually getting to a volunteer site and actually helping people, not going through whether one candidate is better in the long run than another one.
Right.
It's just not a discussion I want to entertain.
And that's a good point to stand by. My time is a little bit limited, so I may have to cut this discussion short in a few minutes.
Well,
but
that's okay. My time's limited also, and I need to get to another caller. But I appreciate it. Let your family, see some of the videos. Let them see the Chief Justice of the Arizona Supreme Court not able.
Is that one that's on volunteerism in simple terms underneath the section, the social contract, the one where you're talking with the guy from Arizona?
Well, you can actually see, yes, Scott Bales, who's the Chief Justice. You can't see me in the video. You can only hear me.
Right. The guy with the glasses, kind of pudgy face.
No. That is John Buttrick. He's a federal judge. Scott Bales is a very slight, short man who is the Chief Justice of the Arizona Supreme Court. So that's a big one that you want to see.
But both of those would work, right? Because you talked with both of them, right?
Yeah. So
then it doesn't really matter which one I use as long as I show them one of them.
Yeah, I would go with the Scott Bales one because and then get with the with John Buttrick. I didn't do as good a job because I wasn't as hard nosed as I should have been because he was a good friend of Ernest Hancock and so I should. Fair
enough.
But he does admit in there that all application of law is arbitrary, which is nice. Some people take that to mean that I'm an idiot because he admitted that, but okay, whatever. If you're saying it's arbitrary, but it's supported by a prison system and it's supposed to be beyond a reasonable doubt, you got some problems. So,
all right. So Scott Bales, I'll go with that video.
Yeah, check that one out, and the video with the professor of law, the doctorate in. He has a PhD in law and he teaches law up in Canada. That's a good one because he's a very, very nice professional conversation with the guy. He's a nice guy. I really enjoyed speaking with him. And he says jurisdiction is a blunt assertion of power. It's not based on argument nor evidence, which is pretty damn nice to get. So that should help because he's an expert and he knows what he's talking about. And he was able to admit the truth. So. But I appreciate the call. Hey, stay in touch and let us know what's happening. If there's more we can do to help bring them along.
Yeah, I'll do that.
All right, we Parker up in Washington, and we're going to do our best to get. We're going to go a little bit over. So what we don't hear on the show live with my next caller, we're just check out the podcast, and I'll also get it up on YouTube so that you can hear all the comments. But Patriot 1. From Florida, welcome back.
Hey, Mark, thanks for squeezing me in. I call him because a friend got pulled over, but he never got a ticket for being pulled over, a rolling stop sign. But he did get booked and arrested for possession and paraphernalia.
That's terrible.
Now, but there is no, I suppose, charging instrument. There's nothing that says, I, Bob, swear that Jim is bound to these pieces of paper we're handing him.
There's no complaint? There's no complaint?
There's a book sheet that I guess this is the first piece of paper he got that has a case number, a date of offense, a hearing date, charge code, charge description, and a cash surety amount. And he signs that. And then there's a inmate accounting transaction receipt where they took money from him. Then there's an inmate cost recovery where he didn't have enough for them to take from him, so he owes a balance of $15 more. Then there's a bond receipt that evidently he created when he signed it, pursuant to the codes that it says, by signing above, the depositor agrees to be bound by the terms of the policy. By signing above, how do you always sign at the end, not before the agreement, but there's no I swear the above statements are true on any of this. And then there's a property receipt and a property receipt. So to file a motion to dismiss, it doesn't say the state of Florida. It doesn't say anything. It says case offense and book sheet, officer, signature, inmates. So how do you create a motion to dismiss when there's nobody charging you with anything except they're wanting you to pay a bond or a cash surety?
So they haven't actually filed a criminal complaint against her? Him?
Correct. There's nothing else, and he's got to appear on the 14th.
I would file a motion to quash based on I would just change it to a motion to quash based on a lack of evidence proving jurisdiction.
Okay, and get that in by Monday.
Yeah, you might get it in. Yeah. So when is the date that they want the due date here?
The 14th is a court date.
So there's plenty of time.
Right. But still, I'd rather have it in within 3 days.
Well,
and
that would, if you can get it in Monday or Tuesday, that would be great. And I'll be in touch with you off air about that.
Okay, and would you also put a request for facts and evidence? I don't think I would ask for them to prosecute me. I would just motion to quash. There's no evidence any of this applies.
Well, yeah, if you can be successful with the motion to quash, it would by extension apply to any.
Okay. Now,
well, hold on one second. Hold on. We'll be back here on the No State Project on Wednesday. We will be live. We're going to continue with Patriot One off air. You'll get all that on the podcast on marstevens.net. Until next time, salud. Okay, so let me
salute.
We're still good to go. So,
okay,
I didn't screw up and cut my recording. Okay, so what were you saying before I had to do that?
If I file a motion to dismiss, say Monday, do I give them? I got to give them less days than before the 14th to respond to. Don't they have to respond to my motion before I go to court?
They're supposed to, but they don't have to. They can. Bottom line, because it's coming up on the 14th, there's plenty of time to file it, but there's not plenty of time to have it ruled on. More than likely, they're going to have to show up on the 14th and argue the motion to quash.
Wouldn't they have to put their argument in writing?
No, they don't. They can do that at the hearing date on the 14th.
Okay, what do you think about adding an affidavit?
I don't like the idea of affidavits because it puts a burden on you. What would you put in the affidavit?
I know of no facts or evidence proving that the book sheet applies to me. I mean, I'm supposed to go, what they expect me to do, and I'm sure you're aware of this, is to go through this book sheet and pick out the things that apply. It says hearing date, charge code. It doesn't say Florida compiled laws. According to Section 247 of it, it just says 893.13-6B, possession, 893.147-1, paraphernalia. It doesn't say anywhere on here that the accused broke any law or is bound by any law. It just says a code, a description, possession, and a surety amount. It doesn't say the accused is bound by this code by way of such and such and such. Well, what facts do you rely on that prove it applies to me?
Well, no, they don't usually do that, but it does sound like there's an actual charge there. They're laying out what the charge is. But if I think I would do it. I think I would still do it.
Well, the charge is a surety. The charge is a surety of $3,000. They want $3,000 or more, I suppose, if you go to court. I don't know. But it says total bond $3,000. The book sheet, the accounting transcript. That's what I'm saying. There's nothing here that says it applies to him. That anything that he owes a surety, except for the one he created as secured, defendant shall appear in above court from day to day and term to term, and shall not depart the same without leave. Said money so deposited shall be returned to the undersigned depositor, also to be forfeited or escheated by order of the court, the above court. And it doesn't say that it doesn't list the above court. It says Lee County Sheriff's Office. It doesn't list the court. It lists the depositor and the defendant. No court. The above sum received by this bond taken and approved by me, the accused, Lee County Sheriff, Mike Scott, Sheriff, Lee County, for his location were taken in jail. It doesn't even list the name of the address of the jail. I mean, it's not like a citation where at least it gives you names and addresses and places to go. They pulled him over for running a stop sign and didn't give him a ticket for a stop sign. It was one of those we got to find drugs arrest type of thing, less than 20 grams.
I guess that is a real problem if they haven't filed anything in court and they're just expecting him to pay a bond.
Right. Now he's got to go meet the bonding officer. We forgot to sign the bond papers. We got bonded out for $300, and we forgot to go and meet the bond guy that did that. So he's going to do that tomorrow morning. But I want him to sign all rights reserved or without prejudice, and then sign his name on every paper. But like I'm saying, there's nothing here except, I guess, the motion to dismiss would be the motion to dismiss case number 17 ... for lack of jurisdiction or lack of evidence of jurisdiction.
Or it could just be titled an objection that there's no evidence of jurisdiction, period, and no bond should be no bond should be ordered.
Right, and then I'm supposing once he gets this in, say Monday or Tuesday, as soon as possible, then we could probably call the prosecutor and say, "Are you aware of this case? Are you allowed to discuss with the prosecutor? Are you allowed to entitle?" You could ask the prosecutor, I suppose, for your administrative hearing.
Well, no, you can speak with the prosecution. Just hold on one second. I'm real sorry about. You know. I'm going to have to finish. Let me just. I'll talk to you about this. We'll finish off air. My name is Marc Stevens. Listening to the little extra edition here at the end of the No State Project with Patriot One from Florida. Till next time. Salud.
I've got one that can see.